Hey everyone, this is Mike from Mike's Do It Yourself. Today I want to show you how to change the front brakes on a 1500. This is a 2009 Chevy Silverado. Now the first step would be to empty out some of your brake reservoir fluid. That way when you push the calipers in for your front brakes, it won't overflow on you. So you can use a turkey baster or a little vacuum pump, whatever you might have. Now I happen to have a vacuum pump, so we'll go ahead and just suck out some of this. And this is good to clean out the contaminants out of the bottom too. It's a really good way to do that. So if you lower the brake fluid about 1/3 of the reservoir, that should be plenty to do the front brakes. And then once you've taken fluid out of there, you can go ahead and just recap it. Or what I like to do is just leave it a little bit loose, that way any excess air pressure or fluid that you push in there, the air is allowed to escape. Once you have your tire off and the vehicle jacked at the proper jacking spot, and for the 1500 it's on the frame near the front here, that will be the jacking spot to remove your front tires. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the discs on these. They may be serviceable, and you can take them to an auto parts store and they can turn them for you if they're serviceable. So we'll go ahead and just spray the mounting bracket bolt for the caliper. And there's one at the bottom. And then the caliper bolts, we'll go ahead and spray those. There's 2 of those. Well, before we remove anything, we will use a big C-clamp and then we'll push the piston, the 2 pistons in. There's one on this side and then there's one on this side. Okay, got a C-clamp here. I'll go ahead and open it up all the way. Here, and you just squeeze a little bit at a time. And that's just the brake pads coming off the caliper. That's normal. We'll do the other side. And just do this a little bit at a time on each side until they're pushed in. And you may have to do this again when the caliper is up or off, if they're not all the way in. There you go, got some movement there. And what you can also do, you can also open this, the bleeder screw up, or the bleeder valve here. You can open this a little bit while you're pushing those in, and that way if you have any contaminants, it will go back, it will come out here instead of going back into your line, because you do have a hydraulic control unit for your ABS, and you don't want to get contaminants in that. So that is an option, a good option, to just crack this open a little bit while you're compressing your pistons in there. and that way your brake fluid will come out here instead of going back in your line. So just keep an eye out on your reservoir. If you chose not to break open your bleeder screws, just make sure that it doesn't overflow. And it looks like there's still plenty of room in there. If we need to push the pistons in more. And then for these bolts, I've got a 18mm. What you can do, if you're not gonna, or a 19mm, what you can do is remove the bottom caliper bolt. You can remove the bottom caliper bolt and lift this up if you just want to change the pads, and you're able to resurface your disc, your brake disc on the vehicle. Or if you want to take the disc off and get it resurfaced, you can take the other bolts out, the mounting bolts out, and that was with a 18mm. So 19mm for the caliper bolts and 19mm for the mounting bolts. Make sure you're holding your brake caliper when you do that. Go ahead and put this up here. Make sure it doesn't fall. If you're going to leave it up here for an extended period of time, you want to maybe take a coat hanger and attach it to your spring or something else on your suspension here. We'll go ahead and flip it upside down. You may need a flathead screwdriver. Just push that brake pad away from your pistons. There we go. And once they are away from the pistons, your caliper or your brake pad area should be just able to pull out. And then you want to inspect your pistons and the boots. Just make sure you don't have any leakage or tears on the boot area. As you can see, these look really good. Yeah, there's no leakage. You may need to push them in a little more just to get your new brake pads in. If you can't push these in by hand, just use a brake pad and use a C-clamp just like I showed you before, and these will push right in. So the best way is just to get them flush with the boots. You don't want to go past that, but around flush with the boots is ideal. And that way you'll have plenty of room to get the new brake pads in. Now to get your brake disc off, you may have a holding bolt here that you have to take off. So we'll go ahead and just spray each one of these. You may need to use an impact just to get this one off. And it's a T30 is the bit head that you'll need. Oh, that's really tearing it up, isn't it? Oh, I'll let that set a little more. So I went ahead and sprayed that hold down bolt with some more penetrating catalyst. So hopefully that'll work in about 15-20 minutes. It'll loosen it up a little bit so I can get this brake disc off. But for now, we'll go ahead and work on changing out the brake pads. So these brake pads came with adjustment brackets. So to get the old brake pads out, I'll just twist them. They should lift out. And then to get the adjustment brackets out, I just pull them up. Pull this one up. And the new ones, I'll just center them. And then to get these all the way in, you may have to tap it with a rubber mallet. Just make sure they're centered. And we can put a little bit of brake slide lubricant. It would be right here. And then on the other side. And you can do that for both sides. And then you just rotate it. Once one side gets in, the other side should be able to fit in. Now it's time to get the brake disc off. Well, once you get this bolt out, go ahead and take the disc off. You may have to hit it on the back side with a rubber mallet. Turn it. Go. And now's a good time to look at your suspension parts, just to see if there's any rubber that's worn out, any lubricant leakage anywhere, and if there is, it's a good time to change those parts out. any ball joints that look worn, any rubber boots that are ripped. Now's a good time to replace them. So you may or may not want to put your mounting bolt back in for your brake caliper or your brake disc. This one's really rusty and I barely got it out. If you do put it in there, I would just recommend just tight enough. Don't over tighten it. I'm just going to put it in temporarily until I put the caliper back on. So we'll go ahead and put the caliper back together. You may need to push these in a little bit. And then I put some disc brake quiet on the back of the pads. So that way it'll keep the pads quiet. Just flip it the right way. Then the caliper bolts will be torqued to 74 foot-pounds, and the caliper mounting bolts will be torqued to 129 foot-pounds. Now this is for the 6-bolt pattern 1500 vehicle for Silverado. So 6 bolts, 6 lug nuts, and the 1500 model. That's what these torque values are. Now for the 8-bolt pattern, they're going to be a little bit different. Okay, and then 129 for the caliper mounting bolts for the bracket. Well, after those are torqued, we'll go ahead and just spray down the brake disc just to get any grease off of it. And once you get your tire back on, your lug nuts are going to be 140 foot-pounds for the torque. And then you could put your cap back on, and these just need to be just tight, don't over tighten them, because all they have is they're just plastic threads. And then once you get your vehicle back on the ground, after you tighten up your lug nuts, you can go ahead and top off your fluid, and you'll want to bleed your front brakes starting from the farthest away from your reservoir. If you've opened up that bleed bolt, you'll want to go ahead and bleed your front brakes. That's very important. And then break-in period, you'll just want to do some short stops, maybe 20 short stops, and just let your brake pads and your pistons come out and grab against your brake disc. So that should be enough just for a short little break-in period, and that way you'll have even wear on your brake pads. Well, this has been Mike from Mike's Do It Yourself. Thanks for watching. Good luck on your next home or automotive project, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.